Karen, just to be clear, you didn't do it.
We know who did it, Steve. We know. And we know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
Yes, we do.
If John was beaten up and attacked in that house, who did it?
We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know. And it's not for us to know. Somebody other than Karen is responsible for that, for the killing of John.
You are listening to the Roberta Glass True Crime Report, putting the true back in true crime. From New York City, Roberta Glass is now on the record.
Okay, how is everybody? Hello, Kath. Hello, Case 10. Hello, Darkside. Hello, Audrey. It is the 4-year anniversary of John O'Keefe's murder. And I'm asking the question, why is John O'Keefe's accused murderer, Karen Reed, still in the driver's seat? She seems to be gaining strength and always 10 steps ahead of any of the anti-Karen Reed side. And I'm going to talk about a little bit about her innocence fraud campaign today, which started long before Aidan Kearney got involved in this case. It started on Court TV. We're going to look at a video on Vinnie Politan's show, and you can see the narrative is what the narrative is pushing straight ahead. There's no one representing the prosecution side. I just was listening to Kevin Lenihan of Yellow Cottage Tales on Spaces saying Vinnie Politan is so great because he presents the other side. I'd ask, where is the other side in this case, in this show? Where's the other side? And this is before anyone really knew anything about the case. So just to give you a little bit of context, Karen Reed backed into John O'Keefe a little bit after midnight, January 29th, 2022. This is September. So I think I want to say the 23rd, but hold on one second. Let me look on the actual video. What am I looking at here? Yeah, let me just share it with you guys without further ado. But that's where this is from. It's from September. And yeah, September 23rd, I was right. September 23rd, 2022. And so he has on all these quote unquote experts, lawyers, and all of them, there's just very little information in the public domain out on this case, but they're all convinced that it seems like that this is some kind of mass conspiracy against Karen Reed. Why they would want to frame the adjunct finance professor, I don't know. But here we go. It's never answered. That question's never answered. So let's take a look at it together.
Tonight, which is in Massachusetts. The defendant was the girlfriend of the victim. The victim, a Boston police officer, dead in a snow.
Does that Boston police officer have a name? So he starts out with the defendant, comes first, right? So that'll give you an idea of where they're going already with this.
Bank. She's accused of the murder, striking him with her car. But the defense has a whole different theory about.
The defense has a whole different theory. Where's the prosecution case? She hit him with her. She hit some police officer with her car and left him in a snowbank. Police officer's name was John O'Keefe. Her boyfriend, 2 years. And we know now that John O'Keefe was asking Karen Reed to leave his home. She refused in the days leading up to Karen Reed reversing into John O'Keefe.
What happened here?
And she refused to leave.
I'm not calling it a conspiracy theory like in the negative way, but it's a theory involving a conspiracy. Okay, there's a difference. There's a difference. There's no one like landing from Mars or anything. There's a difference.
I don't want to make this 100-person conspiracy theory look ridiculous. I'm just saying it's a theory that involves a conspiracy, and there's lawyers involved. Did I tell you there's lawyers involved defending her? So it's going to be a really believable theory that happens to include a conspiracy. But it's not a conspiracy theory. Save your tinfoil hats. Definitely not a conspiracy theory that would probably involve 100 people.
But they are alleging some sort of a conspiracy. Now, for those of you who don't know what this story is, you need some more facts. Chanley Painter has the story.
John O'Keefe was the good cop, and he was a good man. That's why my client was with him.
Karen Reed is accused of
So not even a family member or a friend talking about John O'Keefe. It's the accused killer's lawyer, David Yannetti, who never knew John O'Keefe, memorializing John O'Keefe and then connecting any kind of feelings of sadness with his client, the killer.
causing the death of her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe, after a night of heavy drinking. Prosecutors claim Reed backed her car into O'Keefe during a snowstorm and left him to die. But Reed's defense says the Commonwealth has it all wrong.
With each new piece of evidence that comes in, we're more and more convinced of my client's innocence.
O'Keefe's snow-covered.
And I used to be so naive. I used to believe that defense lawyers believed everything that they were saying to the press. Who believes David Yannetti? To quote Karen, remember what Karen Reed said? He explained to me that if maybe I hit his knee or, whatever that. He explained to me that I had some culpability. Even if I had no criminal intent, I still had culpability. So I got rid of that innocence fraud narrative really quickly. But people on this side are still spinning it, that she had no criminal intent and she didn't mean to do it. It's an accident.
Body was found outside the home of another officer in Canton, Massachusetts. According to the prosecution's statement of the case, the couple was invited to the house after the bars in downtown Canton closed. Witnesses told investigators they last saw the couple at the Waterfall Bar and Grill. Others said they saw a black SUV resembling Reed's parked outside the house, but never saw O'Keefe come inside. Reed told investigators that she dropped him off at the after party and never heard from him again.
People are still using that language, that she dropped him off. He got out of the car, and we know then she reversed into him with her foot 74.5% down on the gas pedal, going up to speeds of 24 miles an hour in reverse. Why do I always bring up that fact? Because it says that she intended to do something. Now, if you're an anonymous lawyer, you got to work with that very damaging fact. And he or she, I believe it's a he, it's just my thought on it, is saying that she was lost and she was so frustrated that she put her foot, almost floored it on the gas, almost floored, put her foot all the way down on the gas pedal and went up to speeds of 24 miles an hour reverse because she was frustrated at being lost. Right at the moment we know that, right after accidentally reversing into him. I find that really just hard to believe. The point of that data and why the prosecutors put it up in front of a jury is it says that she was intending to do something. It's an intentional act when you put your foot down and you reverse like that. I mean, that's so rare to go to the speeds that high in reverse. And as Hank Brennan said in his closing, anger could be inferred. She said she was angry at John O'Keefe. So it wasn't, so if we're inferring anger, not frustration at being lost, we're inferring anger by that. Who was she angry at? John O'Keefe. Strangely, just out of coinkydink, she felt she hit something. She knew he got out of the car. And we know he never moved again after there was this reversal from the spot where he was clipped. So, do the math.
She went home to take care of the kids, and then she called him 49 times. Where are you? Why aren't you back? She was the one to go back to that residence to look for him. She was the one to find him. She was the one to...
See how important it is to dispel all these myths? So people say, well, why are you hammering home? So it's so important to say that she acted. She was acting that morning. She was acting like she didn't know where he was, because clearly she did know where he was. No one else saw him. Nobody else could see, really, like, you know, a foot in front of their face. The snow was coming down so hard. When they were driving there, the conditions were so bad. And they're supposed to see him under snow in the dark part of the lawn. But Karen Reed is kicking the door, let me out, and goes right to him. Karen Reed's the only person who saw him. Everybody else saw nothing that morning, meaning Carrie Roberts and Jen McCabe. But Karen knew right where he was. And so for those who say, well, she came to, this is another narrative on this side. She came to realize after she got home what she might have done. And she started to panic. I mean, those calls were a real expression of her anger and also a cover-up. She says, I'm here with both of your kids. Nobody, you know, and she says, which she wasn't. She knew that Patrick was at a sleepover, friends. She said she was going back. She was going to her house, back to her house in Mansfield. She never did. Instead, she invaded John O'Keefe's house and plotted her escape. But, I mean, that's just the way murderers do things. They confess, they cover things up. So one minute she could be saying, I hit him. The other, could I have hit him? Telling all sorts of different people different things at the scene. But as for her phone calls, they were meant to leave the impression that she didn't know where he was while expressing some real anger towards him.
Try and keep him warm and give him CPR and try and revive him.
But
even Karen Reed said that she never cleared his airwaves and ways. And I think everybody knew he was dead at the scene. And that was unclear in the first trial, but the second trial it was very clear.
Norfolk County prosecutors question those actions. They claim voicemails and text messages detail strains in the relationship and the victim's desire to end their relationship, including a voicemail from the night he died in which Reed allegedly told O'Keefe that she hated him. Also, O'Keefe's niece...
Right above that, let's just go back to that filing by the state. Detailed strains within their relationship, the victim's desire to end their relationship, and the defendant's description of their relationship with them and the two children together as toxic. So when people ask me, what do I think that they fought about that night? I think that they fought about the children. I think that's a really, especially Quayle. And she was saying that the children make things toxic between them. It's not that she's toxic. It's not that she's coercively controlling John O'Keefe. It's the children, meaning Patrick and Quayle, that make things, John O'Keefe's niece and nephew, who he was a caretaker for, make things toxic. Those children make things toxic. It's like really a key piece that has been the whole relationship with Karen Reed and those kids, because that they testified. One of the reasons is it's not a good narrative for Karen Reed, is why we don't hear more about it. And secondly, is because when they testified, because being minors, it wasn't broadcast.
They told O'Keefe that she hated him. Also, O'Keefe's niece and nephew who lived with him allegedly told police that the couple fought constantly about the relationship and breaking up before his death. Prosecutors point to a broken taillight on Reed's SUV, pieces of which were allegedly found near O'Keefe's body, to suggest she ran her car into him.
Near his body, and microscopic pieces of her taillight were found in John O'Keefe's clothing.
A forensic pathologist opined that significant blunt force trauma injuries occurred prior to Mr. O'Keefe becoming hypothermic. Cuts and bruises were found on O'Keefe's head and arm.
Somebody being hit by a car, I would submit, does not look like they had been punched out by Mike Tyson. And the victim here looked like he had been punched out by Mike Tyson.
So that's a narrative that she ran with. Because John O'Keefe had brain swelling and black eyes from the brain pressure, they could say, oh, see, all these cops conspired. This was created by Karen Reed and Natalie Bernschneider-Wawicki, who had known of Karen Reed and known her very, peripherally in college, and had gotten in touch with her when this story broke, and believed in her innocence and helped. I don't know how much she really believed in her innocence, but she helped Karen Reed with her innocence fraud campaign and coming up with ideas like this. And I believe the forensic room is covering this. I mean, all of Natalie Bernschneider-Wawicki's text should have been out in the public domain years ago. But Natalie Bernschneider-Wawicki, when looked like Aidan Kearney was going to get criminal charges for harassing the witnesses in this case, Natalie Bernschneider-Wawicki became a cooperating witness and told some of the story, I believe, not all of the story, to the police. I believe there's a lot more a lot more questions to ask. I mean, they come back, the police, you can listen to the police interview on my channel.
Reed's lawyer, David Yannetti, says his client is not responsible for O'Keefe's injuries.
I believe that the evidence shows that she didn't hit him. I've said in the past that his injuries are not consistent with being hit by a vehicle. And by the way, the Lexus taillight breaking, coming in contact with a human being and not a hard surface, makes no sense to me. I think it's going to make no sense to a jury.
Really? This is early that you can't break a taillight. Like an elbow, a sharp elbow, or a glass that John O'Keefe was holding, or something else. Can't break a taillight.
If not Reed, who? Her lawyer says that there's a lot they still don't know.
This is a case where the homeowner, being a Boston police officer, was treated differently than he would have been if he were you or me.
Okay.
You got to stir up that hatred for the police. Got to stir that up right away. He was treated differently. Here, one of these lawyers suggests, spoiler alert, that the whole police should have recused themselves completely. Not just bring in another police department. No police officer should be investigating crimes. We should have some other paid-for service entity come in and investigate. So absurd.
Okay, bottom line, this trial hasn't happened. I haven't seen the evidence, so I don't know what happened here. I just know what the prosecution is alleging here. But let's bring in Court TV legal correspondent Shanley Painter to talk about what the defense is alleging here. What is their theory on what happened here?
The defense seems to be indicating a theory based on recent motions that this was a police cover-up, that a dead police officer is found in the front yard of the police officer's home who has a close relationship with the lead investigator on this case. So here are some of those explosive allegations revealed in these recent motions, Vinny. They point the finger, of course, at the homeowner, a Boston police officer, where this after party was held, that he's this highly trained boxer and fighter with these deep personal ties to the investigation agencies of this death, and that he influenced this lead investigator who he knew well. They also...
All right, well, let me start there. Like, I understand, like, they're all police officers. It was a police officer party, so... and who investigates murders but police officers. So I get that there could be some crossover there, but okay, so continue here.
Well, there's more. They also allege that these partygoers, a handful of partygoers at this house, colluded with each other. So they got together, got their story straight before they talked to the police, given a consistent account, Vinny. So
this idea that they were partygoers, that they're not people who just had a get-together after the bars closed at one of their houses, had a drink, had a nightcap, came over for a nightcap. This party-goer thing was really pushed by the Reed defense, and it was damaging to the witnesses, this idea that they just couldn't stop drinking. They were just partying. And we heard some of the jurors, I'm thinking of one juror particularly, Ronnie, the EMT, talk about how Karen Reed wanted to go to a pizza parlor, but John O'Keefe wanted to keep drinking over. I mean, he had no basis for that. Could have gone over for a Diet Coke. We don't know. We don't know what Karen Reed planned to do at that pizza parlor, and if there was alcohol there, or if she was going to bring it. We just don't know. I mean, this idea that John was in the wrong because Karen wanted to sober up at a pizza parlor and John didn't is wild to me.
Even changed their story a little bit after they met together.
Okay, that's not good. I never like changing stories. Okay.
Or added details, not necessarily changed, but just added new details.
A little more info.
And then...
Wow, did they change their stories or they added details?
Also, this defense suggests that the investigators, again, who know this homeowner really well.
Had they told exactly the same story, absolutely airtight, they would all say that they rehearsed it. But they did talk behind the scenes. We know that Carrie Roberts and Jen McCabe, under the instructions of John O'Keefe's mother, Peggy O'Keefe, was saying that, was telling them to write a timeline so that they could remember, or try to put some of the very chaotic, thanks to Karen Reed, trying to cause as much disturbance and confusion as possible by screaming and running around the scene, trying to understand what happened in the context of a timeline.
Planted those broken taillight shards that were found at the crime scene to make it appear that Karen Reed ran over or hit her boyfriend and caused his death.
That's now you've come up with an actual theory here. They're covering this up and they are framing someone for murder. They are framing someone for murder. That's what they're alleging, right? With that, that's what you're alleging.
Yeah, this is
Framing
not
for
me,
murder.
the
Okay.
defense.
Is there
So he's saying it like it really happened. They're framing someone for murder. They're framing someone for murder. That's what you're alleging, right? It's not like someone said that. It happened. He's repeating it. He's using the illusory truth effect. If you repeat something often enough, people think it's true.
anything about why, like how he died, like who killed him? All right, we got the cover up, all right, and I know sometimes it's about the cover up. Anything about how he actually died coming from the defense yet?
Floating in these defense motions, they're essentially pointing to this homeowner who we reached out to at Court TV for comment, as well as the investigative agencies haven't heard back. But because of his boxing, fighting, training, like we just heard her attorney say, that this victim looked like he went round and round with Mike Tyson. He had 2 black eyes, multiple skull fractures, wounds to the right, I think it was the right side, but his arm, scratches, like bite marks too. So he had more like been pummeled, according to the defense, than just hit by the vehicle.
All right, but like why he would do it?
There are more questions.
We don't have to answer that. It's just because some unnamed hostility. And you know what never came out at trial? What was they used like some sort of jostling movements done in the bar and said, see, they wanted to fight John O'Keefe. But we never found out what they were laughing about or joking about or what that was about. It would have been really helpful to come out. And they say that Brian Albert was a trained fighter. And he should have come out and said, John O'Keefe was my friend. I keep myself in shape for my job, or I did, by boxing. But he certainly didn't kill John O'Keefe. Everybody stayed quiet. There was no pushback until Karen Reed was just way ahead. And she's still way ahead. And I'll talk about a little bit. You know, this is like her first push through Court TV. So her first innocence fraud push. And you can't tell me that David Yannetti didn't prep them all for the talking points. Came from this Karen Reed's lawyers to Court TV. And Court TV was happy to push this out with really no other side represented. I mean, just Karen Reed's defense talking points.
Than answers.
Okay, all right, so we don't have that part of the puzzle, like someone had a beef with him, or he owed him money, or he slept with his wife, or, he did something else inside that we see on, okay, but none of that yet. Okay, all right. Now, let's get back to that tail light.
Mm-hmm. It's huge.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's really hard. Dougie says, I used to like Vinny, but I can't watch him anymore. The way he shilled for Karen Reed. Yeah. I can see I was just on Vinny for like a very short period of time. And I say, trying to get into the motive for murder, and I say something like, well, there's never really a good reason to kill 2 children and 2 adults in a brutal way. I mean, there's really never any good reason. And you can see his reaction to that. The clip is up on my channel. But otherwise, I think, do I want to take part in this? Otherwise, the other side isn't represented at all. The victim side isn't represented at all.
It's really big. It's really big. How the taillight gets broken could be the key for this whole case for the jury. I don't know. But you have some video tonight.
That's right. Our Court TV team, our producer, obtained exclusively for Court TV video that the defense points to as an alternate explanation as to how this taillight could have been broken, Vinny, not by hitting.
When is this video recorded? Where is this video recorded, and what is the time frame according to the timeline?
Next morning. So
the morning after
yes.
John O'Keefe dies.
Well, same day.
Same day,
yeah, but
early morning hours.
closer to 5 a.m. Right?
Okay.
He's alleged to have been hit around midnight, 12:15, 12:30.
Okay.
This happens. This video, 5 a.m. A little bit before.
Strangely, Karen Reed knew exactly when John O'Keefe was hit. Isn't that odd?
5 a.m. Ring camera video from the victim's home where his girlfriend, Reed, was staying the night. So she, this is what the video, here it is, Vinny. So she's pulling out in the black SUV. And that's the victim's SUV parked. And the defense says that she makes contact, hits the victim's SUV right.
I mean, that could have been debunked right away because she couldn't make contact. Even her own defense experts. I know someone came in and said, well, the experts in this trial said John O'Keefe wasn't hit by a car. Well, who were those experts? They were defense experts. Besides the medical examiner who said she didn't have enough information to make a cause of death if you didn't know what happened. Right? You couldn't say that it wasn't a typical car injury because she clipped him. Head-on car injury is what I mean. But these bumpers don't make contact. Then you have the problem of John O'Keefe's, Karen Reed's smashed to smithereens taillight being embedded in John O'Keefe's clothing. But never mind, even if it'd be hard to plant, but okay. I don't know. And there was no time for it, but okay.
There, damaging that back right passenger side tail light. And they also claim you can see, the victim's SUV move, indicating that there was a collision. And then as she pulls away, they say that you can tell there's missing parts of the tail light cover.
All right, I gotta stop just briefly for a commercial break. A word from our sponsor. I'll be back in 1 minute. Don't go anywhere.
And now a word from today's sponsor. Shelley Levisay never imagined she'd become a statistic. As a prosecutor, she fought for domestic violence victims. As a Christian and a professional, she believed in second chances and the power of love. But when she met Matthew, a veteran with PTSD and a violent past, her compassion became her weakness. He manipulated her, abused her, and nearly destroyed everything she'd worked for. Love Isn't Always the Answer is more than a memoir. It's a wake-up call. Shelley's story reveals the insidious nature of narcissistic abuse and the courage it takes to reclaim your life. If you've ever felt trapped in a relationship, or if you know someone who has, this book is for you. Start reading today and discover a story of survival, redemption, and hope. The link is in this episode's description. Read Love Isn't Always the Answer, a memoir written by defense attorney Shelley Levisay. Available in Kindle, audiobook, or paperback.
Okay, here we go. We're back with Karen Reed's love tap of John O'Keefe's car. That convinced so many people that Karen Reed. I mean, let's look at those defense experts that said that Karen Reed wasn't, that John O'Keefe wasn't hit by a car and that Karen Reed wasn't responsible, i.e. those are the ARCA witnesses that wanted no information from the prosecution. That one of them lied on the stand and said he wasn't paid by the defense, which turned out to be a massive lie. They also communicated for the second trial with Karen Reed via the Signal app, where all their comments were auto-deleted like criminals. And they had no emails to hand over to the prosecution either in the discovery process before the second trial. Strangely looked like a total sandbag of the prosecution. They also received tips from the federal investigation, was telling them what the prosecution witnesses were saying. And they broke the law. They violated their sequestration order by receiving that information. There was nothing stopping them from going, oh, you're telling me what someone else is saying in the trial. I can't listen. Gotta go. But they stayed on the line and chatted with the federal government.
Right, but it would have been missing if it was a result of striking Officer O'Keefe at that time also. Here's a closer look at it. Once again, as we're backing up here, keep your eye and see if you see any movement here from the other car. It's very possible.
Yeah,
it's very possible.
Prosecution doesn't say there's contact.
If the whole case was, how did the tail light get broken? You've got reasonable doubt right there.
Reasonable doubt, yes.
Is reasonable doubt, but the problem is it's found all over the scene by John O'Keefe's body. There's just timeline doesn't. They couldn't have done it. They didn't have time to plan all those pieces.
You've got reasonable doubt right there because you can't tell, but it's very reasonable to think that at that point you could.
It's reasonable, but it's not actually possible. The bumpers don't line up to hit her car. And her own experts say at that speed she couldn't have done the damage that she did to her, smashed to smithereen speed, going that speed.
Broken that tail light. Yeah. Okay. Wow. And that's defense evidence that we got our hands on. Great job. Okay, today's hearing, anything else? Any other headlines?
So a lot of the matters were put off because
How did they get that defense evidence, strangely, and all the defense talking points? Before Aidan Kearney, before anyone else, Court TV is pushing Karen Reed's side. Interesting, no?
Prosecution wasn't quite ready, but the judge did take up a couple of things, mostly about preserving evidence. The defense wants to independently test the forensics here because of a deadline. The judge said yes. Also, the geofence location data of the cell phone of the victim, they want to preserve that. It wasn't done properly the first time, so the judge is going to make the prosecution send the correct letter to Google. And then finally, this is big. The party goers at that house, the defense wants to subpoena their cell phones, Vinny, to see their text messages, their location data, to see this collusion theory of the defense. So the judge didn't rule on that, but he did allow the defense to require.
I mean, this is how we know how Alan Jackson works. It's how he worked in the Kevin Spacey case. He tries to embarrass people by trying to get all their phone data and look for something that might be misconstrued as looking bad for a witness or embarrassing for a witness. It's so much more than just about Karen Reed did it. It's smearing the witnesses, and they started smearing the witnesses immediately from their innocence fraud campaign. Because they have to answer the question, which they still haven't answered. If Karen Reed didn't do it, who did? And it'll depend on the mood they're in. Colin Albert, Brian Albert, Colin and Brian Albert, Jen McCabe. Jen McCabe was a quarterback, just helping cover it up. I mean, it just depends on what day. Looked like they were going to blame it on Lucky Loughran until he turned defense witness, the plow driver, say that he was either in on it or did it himself.
The prosecution to send formal letters giving them notice to not delete anything on their cell phones they had at the time of this crime because it may be handed over to the defense.
All right. I mean, And this is a great defense team, by the way. Alan Jackson just joined it as well, right?
Yes, celebrity attorneys.
Celebrity attorney, represented Kevin Spacey.
If they're so great, why don't they actually argue the law and get their clients off by what they do in court only? Why do they need to play into the court of public opinion to win? Why do they need to cheat to win? Why do they need to lie to win? And by lying and cheating, I'm talking about they were reprimanded in this case for their repeated mischaracterizations and lack of candor with the court. What does that mean? Euphemisms for lying. They're repeated lying to the court. All about those ARCA witnesses that were so convincing. It's amazing that Judge Kearney invited those witnesses back to perjure themselves some more. Oh, you lied to the first jury? Why don't you come back and lie to the second jury some more? Unreal.
Nothing happened to Kevin Spacey. You remember that? All right. Great job, Chanley Painter. I just need a second here because I'm going to be attacked. I'm about to be attacked, okay? Let's bring in the think tank. Joining us tonight in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, former prosecutor, former assistant state attorney, counsel for Ben Crump Law, and trial attorney Sue Ann Robinson is with us.
So Ben Crump Law is a civil attorney who gets involved in what he claims are racially motivated cases and gets multi-million-dollar payouts. I consider him a massive innocence fraudster.
In Houston, Texas, criminal defense attorney Carmen Rowe, and in Atlanta, Georgia, criminal defense attorney, law professor at Emory University and Georgia Innocence Project board member Molly Palmer is with us.
And we'll get into her background in a minute. Remember her on the bottom right, Molly Palmer from the Georgia Innocence Project. One of the really very active innocence projects. And I've talked about one of their cases on this channel.
Okay, so this isn't a case where we're saying, hey, there's just a little doubt that you can prove this. This is a cover-up, a frame job by the police. Sue Ann, what are your thoughts?
I mean, he says it like it's fact. Was that even a question? Is
this a good theory?
I think it's a good theory. I think it's clear that the Boston Police Department investigating the Boston Police Department's possible involvement in a murder is a conflict. And if they didn't want there to be a conflict, they could have called outside agencies to come in and do an investigation.
They had another police department investigate it. That wasn't good enough.
And completely obliterate the defense's opportunity to have the argument that there's a conflict in the investigation. But they chose not to do that. They chose to investigate a death of their own on their own, which creates the opportunity for the defense to make that argument. And secondly, the issue with the defendant right now.
Let's look at what happened when an independent agency and hundreds of thousands of dollars of taxpayer money was wasted on an investigation into John O'Keefe's murder. They found no conspiracy, and then they had ridiculous ideas that suggestions for the police that they should have taken pictures of John O'Keefe's body before he got CPR. I mean, or when he got the medics to help, work on him, and other ridiculous suggestions. But they found the federal government investigated this, and then an independent, quote unquote, paid for agency looked into it and found nothing. So we've had 2 investigations into this, and they found no conspiracy. So it's really not such a good theory that involves a conspiracy, is it, Vinny?
Is that killing your boyfriend because you're upset with him or mad at him or having an issue in your relationship is a motive that the jury can sink their teeth into. That's something we're familiar with. It's harder to push the motive of the conspiracy and the police and what they're doing, and they put this stuff together and they planted the taillights. Even if it's true, it's harder for the average jury to sink their teeth into a motive like that.
Yeah, Carmen, what do you think? What does it take to get to the point where you are going to accuse the police of framing someone for murder?
It doesn't take much, Vinny. We see police officers charged all the time.
It doesn't take much, just a really guilty client. When in doubt, blame the police. It's always a good defense strategy. Doesn't take much. I mean, who's representing we have 3 people all on Karen Reed's side. 4 people, including Vinny. I mean, who's representing the state's case here? It's not like they're outnumbered. They don't exist. The state's case has been totally ghosted. And Karen Reed's innocence fraud narrative has been pushed.
We see them put their thumb on the scale and cheat to get the result that they want. And you know what tells me that this conspiracy theory is not completely out of whack is that they filed charges in this case so early when we have a tail light. I know we don't have all the evidence in, but I don't see anything to fill the gaps on the canvas that the defense is taking this prosecution to task about. So why would they file charges so quickly against her unless the fix was in with law enforcement? They wanted to make sure that she got charged, not one charge, but I think she has 3 separate charges, and she's now facing a trial, but I don't think they have enough to go forward. And I think the defense is putting them on Front Street about that.
Right. Why is it murder too? That's another position that many people on this side took. Why is it murder too? She was overcharged. I mean, the Testify campaign had a tweet. Even if you think Karen Reed was overcharged in this case, we can all agree that she hit him. Whether she meant to or not, we can all come together. But it's really, narrative is so, do you see how important narrative is? So even if you adopt Karen Reed's first innocence fraud campaign, that she had no criminal intent, she's still welcome here. I mean, what are we talking about? And I think it's a real need to look, I think people think that they look unbiased and fair-minded by adopting some of a very popular innocence fraud narrative. And they look like they're very well considered and fair. But ultimately, it's really phony because the evidence doesn't support it. There is a reason why Karen Reed was given a murder 2 charge. And I recognize that you don't have to prove that she intended to hit him for that murder 2 charge to stick. But that she should have reasonably known that her reversing in that manner with John O'Keefe out of the car, that she could have hit him even unintentionally. And that is put there, that the reason the law is worded that way is for, my opinion, is for so jurors who can say, well, we got to acquit her because we can't prove intent.
Now, I just want to be clear, I'm not calling it a conspiracy theory. It's a theory of a conspiracy, right? Because I think there's some negative connotation when I say conspiracy theory, but it's a theory involving a conspiracy by these officers to frame Officer O'Keefe's girlfriend for murder. Molly Palmer, your thoughts tonight?
Well, I mean, in addition to what Sue Ann and Carmen have pointed out, both of which I think is really telling, right? We have this hesitation to bring in an outside jurisdiction of police to investigate their own. Obviously, this police homeowner is not a suspect. They quickly rush to charge Karen Reed. And then the defense is having to make motions to get evidence and discovery. If the prosecution was trying to be transparent, if the cops were trying to be as forthcoming as they possibly
They would hand over everyone's cell phone with 2 years of data. That's what she's saying.
Possibly could about the evidence, hand over the evidence, send the proper preservation letter. The fact that the defense is having to fight to even get these things is just one more reason why I look at this and I don't see a conspiracy theory. I see power corrupting and police protecting their own.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do, Molly Parmer from the Innocence Project. The biggest fraud, in my opinion, in America right now that nobody's talking about. The way that organization works.
I think Karen Reed is innocent, and I can't.
Getting out guilty people so that they can sue these lawyers who get these criminals, murderers out on all sorts of different kinds of things. By hook or by crook, mostly by crook. So they can sue in our civil courts, these same lawyers, for wrongful imprisonment, wrongful, right? Wrongful conviction, etc.
Can't wait to see what happens once the evidence is turned over and David Yannetti and his team, who are excellent, really get to ferociously defend this woman, who I think is part of a cover-up.
Yeah, she did say, I hit him 3 or 4 times. Like, so there is that too. There's other.
Right at the end. She did say she hit him. 1540 into a 1554 show.
Evidence.
We were already having, for those listening on podcasts, we're already having the little blocks where you can click on to go to other shows coming up. To lead you away from this episode, Vinny puts in one talking point from the prosecution.
There always is other evidence. There's evidence on both sides. But when I say we as the prosecutor, and Sue Ann is a prosecutor too, former prosecutor, we carry that burden. So we know we need more evidence than the defense has. All right.
You need more evidence, but we're not going to talk about any of that evidence here in this show. Kind of amazing, right? So it's an enlightening watch. Molly Parmer Law, she is the daughter of his last name's Williamson. He was a illustrator. She says, my dad was an artist for seditious psychedelic cartoons that captured the chaos of the late 1960s. He illustrated, so his name was Skip Williamson. He illustrated Abby Hoffman's Steal This Book and drew comics depicting anarchy, drugs, sex, and violence. He attended every day of the Chicago 7 trial. And she says he attended every day of the trial of the Chicago 7. I just moved around the words there a little bit. And drew his own versions of courtroom sketches. At the time of his death, he was essentially living as a fugitive in Vermont, on the run from a number of bench warrants in Georgia. So she's team criminal. That's how I take that. Having been raised in the radical left, the trial of the Chicago 7, started the People's Law Office in Chicago, which is one of the main law firms that cleans up on these civil cases, these civil wrongful conviction, exoneration industry cases, I'd call them. All right, here, Innocence Fraud Watch writes, questions for Chanley Painter and Vinnie Politan and Court TV regarding statements made on September 22nd. Why do I think it was the 23rd? Why am I looking at the 23rd? I would think Innocence. I think this may have not gone up to the 23rd, and it was actually released on the 22nd. So there's a little correction there. I think it got up on Court TV on the 23rd. On YouTube on the 23rd, excuse me, Court TV and YouTube on the 23rd. July 28th, 2022. Georgia-based assignment editor at Court TV, Bruce Conover, made a request for permission to film Karen Reed's August 12, 2022 pretrial hearing. On September 22nd, 2022, Shanley Painter and Vinnie Politan from Court TV aired a segment called Exclusive Security Video released in Karen Reed's case, which also featured Sue Ann Robinson, Carmen Rowe, and Molly Palmer, who served on the board of the Georgia Innocence Project. Below is a partial transcript. We know what they just said. So Innocence Fraud Watch has some questions. Did Bruce Conover receive a tip from someone to film Karen Reed's hearing? And if so, who was the tipster? If I had to guess, it would be either Alan Jackson or David Yannetti, but maybe someone else. Who first approached Court TV? Was it Karen Reed, one of her lawyers, or someone else? How did Court TV know whether or not John O'Keefe had finally broken things off with Karen Reed while en route to or sitting idly outside 34 Fairview Road for around 7 minutes? Why didn't Shanley Painter mention anything about the domestic violence John O'Keefe had been subjected to by Karen Reed leading up to the January 28th and 29th, 2022? Why didn't Shanley Painter make clear Karina Kolakithis said she saw John O'Keefe climb into the passenger side of Karen Reed's car on Washington Street? Why didn't Painter or Politan point out the fact that Reed never went home to Mansfield after arguing with John O'Keefe? Why didn't Shanley Painter or Vinnie Politan point out the fact that John O'Keefe's niece and nephew had said John had asked Karen Reed to leave his house just days before she killed him, and that their relationship had run its course? Why didn't Painter point out the fact that microscopic pieces of Karen Reed smashed to smithereens taillight were found in John O'Keefe's shirt? Why didn't Painter or Politan point out the fact that Karen Reed had told John O'Keefe's niece to call Michael Camerano at around 5:04 a.m. to come pick her up when he hadn't been answering her calls? Why did Painter or Politan choose to get involved with Karen Reed and her lawyers' pretrial public relations spin campaign? And why hasn't Painter ever corrected the record regarding the lie she put out on Brian Albert having a close relationship with the lead investigator? Why isn't Painter also never corrected her lie about Brian Albert being this highly trained boxer and fighter, who Painter also falsely claimed Michael Proctor knew so well? And why did Vinnie Politan choose to lie and say the 9 people at 34 Fairview Road were all police officers when 7 of the people were civilians? And these are really good questions. Why did Politan choose to lie about the gathering at 34 Fairview Road? Call it a party. Which witnesses was Painter accusing of changing their stories a little bit after they met together? After reaching out to Albert, the homeowner, and those investigators agencies, did Painter, Politan, or anyone from Court TV carry out any due diligence and recognize the fact that Brian Albert was not a highly trained boxer and fighter? And did they ever consider the fact and inform their listeners that at around 4:56, Karen Reed had already told Jennifer McCabe and inadvertently Matthew McCabe and John O'Keefe's niece she had a smashed to smithereens taillight? Has Painter ever corrected the record for falsely claiming the motion-activated Ring camera footage from John O'Keefe's house was from 5 a.m., a little bit before 5 a.m., when in reality the clip Court TV aired was from 5:08 a.m., a little bit, I think that would be after 5 a.m.? And how did Court TV get their hands on the motion-activated Ring camera footage from John O'Keefe's Meadow Avenue driveway, showing the killer backing out of the garage, pretending to damage her already smashed to smithereens taillight? Did Karen Reed send it to them or one of her lawyers? Painter said also the geofence location data of the cell phones of the victim, they want to preserve that if it wasn't done properly the first time. How so? Good question. Who were these celebrity attorneys referred to by Painter? Molly Palmer, her father was Mervyn Skip Williamson, and she had represented Joe Exotic, aka Joe Maldonado passage with, and of course said the following during her court TV segment. Well, I mean, in addition to Sue Ann and Carmen have pointed out, both of which I think is really telling, right? We have this hesitation to bring in an outside jurisdiction of police to investigate their own. Obviously, this police homeowner is not a suspect. They quickly rush to charge Karen Reed, and the defense is having to make motions to get evidence and discovery. The prosecution was trying to be transparent. Of the cops were trying to be as forthcoming as they possibly could about the evidence, hand over the evidence. Yeah, you know who wasn't forthcoming with their evidence? The defense team, who basically hid discovery having to do with almost every single one of their witnesses. In both trials, we had this fight over discovery. And then we had these pointless voir dires as punishment for the defense because they did not meet their discovery obligations in an effort, I believe, to sandbag the prosecution. Send the proper preservation letter. The fact that the defense is having to fight to even get these things is just one more reason why I look at this, and I don't see a conspiracy theory. I see power corrupting and police protecting their own. I think Karen Reed is innocent. Isn't that interesting that this defense lawyer who believes so much in the process is declaring someone innocent before all the facts come out and before there's even a trial? And I can't wait to see what happens once the evidence is turned over. And David Yaneni and his team were excellent, really get to ferociously defend this woman who I think is part of a cover-up. Wonder why she thinks that. Wonder why she's adopting exactly Karen Reed's defense strategy and innocence fraud campaign. So way before there was ever Turtleboy, there was Molly Palmer. And I have so much more to say tonight, but I'm just going to conclude. You know, we like to think that anybody saying Karen Reed is guilty is helpful, but it has to be a narrative that makes sense with the evidence for it to have any impact or any power. And to dispel Karen Reed's innocence fraud narrative, you have to show the real narrative, and it's very hard to do without Karen Reed's. We haven't even seen her phone extraction. They never went to her computer. But what certainly doesn't help is that Karen Reed was so hysterical, that Karen Reed wasn't involved in a cover-up. Karen Reed didn't know she hit him. She was so drunk, she didn't know what she was doing. It was an accident. This Bella's mom nonsense, that Karen Reed was so jealous over Bella's mom when we know that Bella's mom was a friend of, was the mother of a friend of Kaylee's, and her name would have, we've already seen a TikTok video where Bella's mom's name gets mentioned, and certainly nobody in the room was afraid of Karen Reed flying off the handle. It didn't make sense, this story. I mean, the story that was told was Karen Reed and John O'Keefe were in a relationship. It was having some issues, but they were just very publicly, right? I don't even know if there was said that. They were getting along well at the bar, right? That's the narrative put out there. And that she just reversed into him. She got out of the blue. And it makes no sense out of the context of her domestic violence and her abuse of him, which we only know the slightest about. This narrative that, you know, she was overcharged, it was an accident, has not been very powerful. Karen Reed, certainly, whatever you can say about her innocence fraud campaign, they all agree that she did it. Or she didn't do it. They may have different, right? She didn't do it, and it was a cover-up. And it was the police wall of silence, right? and it's corruption. I mean, it's a very sexy narrative, and like crack cocaine to Americans, especially with the war on the police. So I have a lot more to say, but I think I'm going to come back tomorrow. This is already going very long, and talk about it. I had a feeling maybe that I had more to talk about than I had time today, but I'll be talking more about why these narratives, and hopefully I'll be a little bit more articulate, why these narratives have no power, or have very little power against a campaign like this. Certainly, I've never been involved in any other fighting an innocence fraud campaign on the other side of an innocence fraud campaign, where there's people saying, for example, like the West Memphis Three, they were so drunk, which we know they were. I mean, meaning they didn't know what they were doing. 3 convicted child killers in that case. This is the only case that I talk about where people fighting for their guilt or fighting for the victims also adopt part of the innocence fraud narrative. It's very interesting. And they think it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter. Details don't matter. Narrative doesn't matter. Just matters that we said Karen Reed hit him. She left him to die. That's the important thing. Whether she knew she hit him or not, she hit him, she left him to die. It's not a conspiracy. But it's so, it matters who's saying it, how they're saying it, and what narrative they're putting out. Certainly all matters. So I'll talk about that more tomorrow. Have a great night, everyone. If you'd like to support the channel, links are in the episode of this episode's description. You can Venmo, buy me a coffee, or become a patron and get access to content you won't get anywhere else. Please hit the thumbs up on your way out. Leave me a comment. I do read each and every one of your comments. Have a great night, everyone. I'll see you tomorrow at 6.
I hit my boyfriend with my car. It wasn't an accident, but with lying lawyers I'll go far. Lying lawyers and witness harassment. I'll avoid prison. It was snowing. I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard. Now the legal system I clown. Innocence fraud campaign to save my skin. Making money, truth is my second victim. Carry, gin, gin, like John, you were my mark. My innocence fraud campaign is my biggest hit. Yeah. I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard. Now the legal system I clown. Innocence fraud campaign to save my skin. Making money, truth is my second victim.